Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, learners, professionals. This is the official initial reading video of the CIMA management case study or the gateway examination. As you know, I don't focus in a coaching sense on the MCS or the gateway paper, but I do create helpful content. And it is in that interest that we are going to read the pre-scene together, hopefully for the first time. And I'm hoping that this whole experience will be a fun and engaging one, also an adventurous one, realizing what the new pre-scene is about. Before I get started, I want to quickly remind you I have put together a Google Drive folder to help mainly self-study learners who maybe write to me. I've also created a video called 5 reasons why students fail the MCS and the gateway exam. So you can view that through my channel, or it might pop up somewhere. You're free to watch that, and I am sure it would be helpful. You can use the Google Drive link in the description section of this video in order to access the self-study support content folder. Now, let's get started with the CIMA MCS or Gateway Examination May 2022 and August 2022 examination pre-scene reading. So we have a company called Piping, and for the interest of the viewer, I'm going to switch to full screen view so that you may have a better view on the wordings. CIMA Gateway and MCS Case Study Examination, May-August 2022. Pre-scene material, the company is Piping. As usual, we have the COVID-19 statement, this pre-scene and the case study in general, while aiming to reflect real life, are set in a context where the COVID-19 pandemic has not had an impact. Remember, marks in the exam will be awarded for valid arguments that are relevant to the question asked. Answers that make relevant references to the pandemic or social distancing will of course be marked on their merits. In most cases, however, candidates may find it helpful to assume that there are no restrictions to the movement of people, goods, or services in place. Then we have the table of contents, which span across 22 pages. The tea industry, growing and processing tea leaves, tea manufacturing, tea consumption, Piping's history and products, operations, marketing, distribution, social responsibility, Piping's management structure, Piping's business model, competition, extracts from Piping's annual report, extract from Hotlow's annual report, which I assume is the competitor, and news reports. Introduction. Piping Beverages, hereafter known as Piping, is a quoted company that manufactures packaged tea for sale to retailers. Piping buys the tea that it uses in bulk on the open market. Piping is based in Northlandia, a developed country that has a strong economy and whose citizens have a high standard of living. Northlandia's currency is the N dollar. Northlandian company law requires companies to prepare their financial statements in accordance with international financial reporting standards. You are a financial manager at Piping's head office. Your primary responsibilities are associated with management accounting, and you report to Channa De Silva, the senior financial manager who reports directly to the finance director. Then we have the section on the industry. This time, interesting, the tea industry. Traditionally, tea is a hot drink made by soaking the dried leaves of Camellia sinensis shrub in boiling water. Camellia sinensis is a clearly defined family of shrubs that includes a number of specific varieties. Leaves, plants, and buds from many other plants can be used to make drinks that are often referred to as tea, although strictly that title should be restricted to leaves from one of the shrubs belonging to the Camellia sinensis family. All references to tea in this document will be to products and drinks made from Camellia sinensis leaves. Growing and processing tea leaves. The Camellia sinensis shrub is grown commercially in South Asian and East African countries. The best tea shrubs are grown at altitudes of between 1000 and 2000 meters. The shrubs on tea plantations have useful lives that vary between 40 and 100 years, depending on the specific variety of the Camellia sinensis shrub. The leaves are harvested by plantation workers who pluck leaves from bushes every 7 to 14 days. The leaves are then processed using two main methods to produce two different types of tea. First, we have black tea. The green leaves are spread on racks to dry before being treated mechanically to break up the leaf cells. The processed leaves are left to absorb oxygen. Once they have oxidized, they are blown with hot or they are blown with hot dry air, which turns them black. Black tea is sometimes referred to as made tea or dry tea. And the second type is green tea. Green tea is made by steaming and heating the green leaves after they have been plucked. The leaves are not processed further and so they remain green. There is some further processing at the plantation with slightly different processes depending on whether the leaves are to be sold to make loose tea or tea bags. The leaves are then bagged and sold to tea manufacturers. Black tea is sold in bulk as a commodity, with many tea growing countries operating tea auctions that enable manufacturers to bid against one another in order to acquire a supply of tea leaves. Black tea leaves from different countries have different flavors, and flavor can also be affected by the plantation where they are grown. Manufacturers must keep the particular flavor of their tea blends and will often bid for leaves from specific plantations to help in the blending processes. We have a graph which provides tea price as a commodity, and even though it is slightly fluctuating, you have something that is averaging about $2 to $N per kilo for the past 5 years time duration. The next subsection is on tea manufacturing. Tea manufacturers import the tea leaves purchased at auction from growers. They are then blended and packaged ready for sale to retailers. They are then blended and packaged ready for sale to retailers. Each batch of black tea has a slightly different flavor because of factors such as weather conditions during growth. Tea manufacturers deal with that by employing skilled blenders to test samples from each batch of tea leaves under laboratory conditions. The tasters note the precise flavor characteristics of each batch and determine a blend from different batches that will create the consistent flavor associated with their particular brand or brands of tea. The mix of leaves from different sources varies slightly according to the flavors of each batch of leaves that arrive at the factory, but the tea that is sold should always taste the same when it is brewed by customers. Once the tea is blended, it is packaged and prepared as products for sale to consumers, primarily through retailers. Tea is sold to consumers in different forms. First form is loose tea. Loose tea leaves are sold in packets. Consumers spoon the leaves into a teapot or other receptacle and add boiling water. The mix is allowed to stand until the water has been infused with flavor. Loose tea is generally made up with high quality tea leaves. Depending on the drinker's taste preference, each cup of tea requires roughly 3 grams of leaves. The second form is tea bags. Tea bags are made by enclosing loose tea in small bags of porous material. The bags vary in composition, but they are usually made from paper, plastic, or gauze, sometimes a mixture of two or more raw materials. The consumers can use a teapot or they can simply put a tea bag in a cup or mug and add boiling water. The tea then infuses as for loose tea. Tea bags require the leaves to be ground more finely at the plantation because the water cannot flow through the leaves as freely as for loose leaves. A typical tea bag contains 1.5 grams of tea leaves. Tea pods. Tea pods are sealed plastic containers that are designed to fit in the same machines that are used to make coffee from coffee pods. Each brand of such machines requires pods that are made to accommodate its unique shape. The consumer inserts a pod into the machine and fills the machine's tank with water. The machine heats the water, punctures the pod, and forces hot water through the pod. And finally, you have ready to drink. Tea is sold in bottles that are intended to be consumed as chilled drinks. The manufacturer brews batches of tea which are then cooled and bottled for sale to retailers. Then you have tea consumption. Tea is second only to water as the most widely consumed drink in the world, although its popularity varies significantly between countries. Northlandians consume an average of 1.9 kilos of tea per person each year, putting them near the top of the global rankings. Northlandia is one of 8 countries where the annual average consumption exceeds 1 kilo per person. Tea drinking is deeply rooted in many national cultures. Tea contains caffeine, which makes it refreshing. Tea is hydrating and so helps the body to store fluid, which is very beneficial in hot climates or when taking a break from work or exercise. Tea is also believed to increase the body's defense against a new number of serious illnesses. Then we have a bar chart which is on worldwide retail sales of tea in $N billions. Something that started at around $100 billions by 2012 has risen up to nearly $240 billion by 2021 and forecasts continuously go up to exceeding $300 billion. So gaining popularity. Cultural differences also affect the manner in which tea is prepared and consumed. For example, black tea is very popular in some countries and green tea is preferred in others. The relative popularities of tea bags versus loose tea also varies significantly. Piping's history and products. So we learn about the assigned company. Piping was founded in 1852 in Northlandia's central city. Northlandia's climate is unsuitable for the growth of tea shrubs and so tea manufacturers have always relied on imported tea leaves. Tea drinking has been part of Northlandia's culture for many years and it remains popular. The company was listed on the Northlandian Stock Exchange in 1974. Piping has grown steadily, focusing exclusively on black tea and has been Northlandia's leading tea manufacturer for many years. Piping now produces several varieties of tea, including 2 of the most popular teas in the country. Those are Piping tea in tea bags and as loose tea and Piping strong flavor only in tea bags. Piping was the first company to manufacture tea bags in Northlandia, introducing them to the market in 1958. Since then, it has created a number of innovative designs of tea bags. Each design change is claimed to improve the flavor of the tea made from its tea bags. Northlandians prefer tea bags to loose tea. Piping manufactures 360 million tea bags every week. The company also sells loose tea in packets to cater for the demand from the minority of consumers who prefer to make tea from loose leaves. Piping's teas are regarded as premium products that are slightly more expensive than competing brands. The company buys good quality tea leaves. It spends heavily on advertising in order to promote brand awareness. Piping's packaging is both visually appealing and is designed to keep the contents fresh. Piping tea is popular because it matches the preferences of Northlandian consumers who generally like a strong flavor that can be enhanced by adding both milk and sugar. Most of the company's output is sold through retailers in Northlandia, although it exports tea to countries that share a preference for strong tea. Exports are also driven by demand from Northlandian expatriates who have settled abroad and wish to continue drinking their favorite tea. Operations. Piping has a factory in Central City in Northlandia where it employs 700 staff. Further 200 staff are involved in buying, marketing and administration. They are based at a head office building that is close to the factory. Black tea is purchased at auctions held in the various tea producing countries. Piping has a sophisticated digital buying system that predicts the company's requirements for tea from different locations and matches those requirements to the timing of scheduled tea auctions. That enables the purchasing department to identify buying opportunities that are relevant to the company. Inventories of tea can then be managed efficiently, minimizing holding costs and wastage. The price of black tea varies according to supply and demand, but it is always the single most expensive component of piping's costs, typically exceeding 40% of total manufacturing cost. Each batch of tea purchased is sampled on delivery by Piping's tea blenders. The company has 6 blenders who have a tasting laboratory beside the factory. Each batch of leaves has its own unique flavor, which means that Piping's teas would not be consistent over time. The blenders have the skill to taste each batch and to adjust for slight differences in flavor, color, and aroma by altering the proportions of teas from different countries and different plantations. They use their judgment to decide the precise mix of different batches to be used in blending teas for production. Black tea leaves are packaged in large paper sacks at the plantation. The sacks are shipped to Piping's factory on wooden pallets that are stacked inside shipping containers. Unprocessed black tea can be stored for years, although its flavor will deteriorate slightly if stored for more than a few months. Manufacturers will, in any case, be keen to minimize inventory holding costs by processing black tea and selling the finished product as quickly as possible. When they are required for production, the paper sacks are transported mechanically and emptied into massive metal drums, with the number of sacks from each batch of black tea specified by the tea blenders. The drums rotate slowly until the tea leaves from each batch have been mixed evenly. Sample is tasted by the factory's quality control technicians to confirm that the mixture of leaves in the drum is satisfactory before any further processing. If the blended tea leaves are to be sold as loose tea, then they are loaded onto production lines that weigh out the correct amount for each packet of tea. The tea leaves are then dropped onto sheets of foil that are cut, folded and sealed using heat to create packets of tea. The packets are placed in cardboard boxes that are formed on the production line. That creates the retail boxes of tea that are ready to be stacked onto retailers' shelves. The retail boxes are loaded into cardboard boxes for shipping. The process for making tea bags is very similar. The loose leaves required for each tea bag are placed on a strip of paper. A second strip of paper goes on top and the two strips are fused together around the tea leaves. The fused strip is then cut to separate the individual tea bags. More expensive brands of tea bags, including pipings, have a tag attached to make it easier for consumers to lift them out of their cups. Individual tea bags can also be packaged in a paper envelope to maintain freshness and to permit branding to be printed on each tea bag. Tea bags are then packed in foil, boxed, and placed in outer cardboard boxes for transportation to retailers. There are two separate production lines for loose tea and tea bags. All processes are highly mechanized. The 700 production staff are employed to monitor the operation of the machinery on the production lines, make adjustments, carry out preventive maintenance, and deal with breakdowns. The machinery undertakes almost all of the manufacturing and handling of inventory. Marketing and distribution. Piping's products are sold through most major retailers in Northlandia. The marketing and distribution department has two main functions. The first function is advertising. Piping invests heavily on advertising in order to maintain brand awareness. The company's brand name is one of the most recognizable in the country, but it remains important to advertise through traditional and online channels in order to prevent loss of market share. Advertising also helps piping to develop brand loyalty from younger customers who might switch to other drinks such as coffee. The advertising team is part of piping's marketing and distribution department. It has a substantial budget for the development of new adverts and for broadcasting and publication. The second function is account management. Piping is the largest tea manufacturer in Northlandia. Piping is the largest tea manufacturer in Northlandia, and most food retailers wish to sell Piping's products. Piping strives to maintain a strong relationship with major retailers by having a designated account management team in its marketing and distribution department. This team's function is to engage with buyers employed by retailers. Typically, a major retail customer will be assigned an account manager who will be the designated contact between piping and the retailer's buying department. Account managers will also seek to encourage buyers to place regular orders, increasing their spend as much as possible. For example, an account manager might be authorized to offer a discount in return for an increase in the retailer's regular order. Account managers also keep retailers informed about forthcoming promotions such as new advertising campaigns that will hopefully increase demand. Account managers frequently visit supermarkets to check the placement of Piping's products on the shelves. Supermarket shelf space is always limited, and the extent and location of products on the shelves can have a significant impact on sales. For example, products placed at eye level tend to sell better than those on higher or lower shelves. Piping's marketing and distribution department keeps close contact with consumers to ensure that its teas remain popular. The company makes several varieties of tea, each of which aims to attract its own specific niche of tea drinkers. For example, Piping Strong flavor was developed 5 years ago because of the feedback from a sizable minority of consumers who were using 2 bags per cup to get the strength of flavor that they wished. Piping's tea blenders developed a new blend that could deliver a stronger flavor from a single tea bag and so created a popular new product. Piping's marketing and distribution department also has a small team of sales managers who seek to expand Piping's export sales. Although the company's brand image is strongly associated with Northlandia, there are nevertheless some other countries in which piping brands are popular. There are also several countries where retailers sell piping tea to meet the demand from local communities of Northlandian expatriates who enjoy drinking piping tea because it reminds them of home. The next section is on social responsibility. Most tea plantations are located in developing countries, which has led to some controversy over the rates of pay and the working conditions imposed on plantation workers. Piping, in common with most tea manufacturers, buys tea leaves from auctions, and so the company has very little direct contact with the plantations themselves. The fact that prices are set at auction means that there is at least some transparency over pricing. Piping supports a number of local charities and other initiatives in tea growing countries that are intended to encourage plantation owners to treat their workers fairly. These initiatives also offer practical support, such as funding schools and medical facilities in tea growing regions that are too remote for government facilities to be available. Piping's manufacturing processes are designed to use resources efficiently and with the minimum of waste. Its production lines are maintained regularly in order to produce the amount of power required for their operation. Products are designed to eliminate waste. For example, all packaging is recyclable and uses as little material as possible in order to reduce weight and so transportation cost. Piping's tea bags and loose tea leaves can be recycled by consumers. The paper in tea bags is biodegradable and used tea leaves make excellent fertilizer. Piping's packaging provides consumer advice on recycling. Then we have Piping's management structure. The chief executive is Karen Burugu. You have Debbie Sarkar as the chief operating officer, is in charge of tea buying, production, quality management. Then you have Zan Pale, marketing and distribution director, in charge of advertising, account management, and consumer feedback. Murat Gizer, finance director, in charge of management, accounting, and financial reporting, and this is who you are reporting to. Gus Ledo, human resources director. Staff recruitment, staff retention, and staff training are the HR director's responsibility. And we have Maulay Lasan, product development director, who is in charge of tea blends and packaging updates. And the Piping's board also includes the following non-executive directors: Victoria Tsang, the non-executive chairman; Tunde Ope Devi or Davies; Zasha Swan, Frederick Ekengren, Julian Pesos, and Bernard Wattler. So we have basically in the executive team, including the CEO, there are 6 members, and in the non-executive team, again including the chairman, 6 members. Each of the executive directors other than the chief executive is responsible for a specific functional area. Marketing and distribution is managed as a profit center. The other 4 functional areas are cost centers. Responsibility accounting. That brings us to Piping's business model. The company's business model might be viewed as follows. Starts with defining value, then moves to creating value, delivering value, and capturing residual value. Let's go through them. The business model starts with defining value. Piping defines value in terms of the needs and wishes of consumers. Piping pays close attention to feedback from customers and adapts to maintain the popularity of its brands. Then we create value. Piping sources good quality materials for its products and their packaging. Piping constantly innovates to maintain the quality of its products and the manner in which they are packaged. Thirdly, delivering value. Piping markets its products in a clear and relevant manner to maintain brand loyalty. Piping has an efficient distribution system that ensures that its products are readily available. And finally, capturing residual value. Piping buys high quality materials and adds value in the manufacturing process in order to justify a premium selling price. Piping supports growers by paying realistic prices. Piping controls costs through operational efficiencies in manufacturing. So that's the business model cycle. Piping has always used good quality tea leaves in order to ensure that consumers were prepared to pay a premium price in comparison to its main competitors. Piping's teas are slightly more expensive than competing brands. Even so, tea is a relatively inexpensive beverage when compared to other drinks such as coffee, fruit infusions, or cold drinks such as sodas. Many tea drinkers are prepared to pay a little more for a brand of tea that they will enjoy. Piping has always been at the forefront of innovation. For example, it introduced tea bags to the Northlandian tea market. Since then, it has introduced a number of different products, primarily through packaging. For example, Piping has redesigned its tea bags several times. The current design is a complex shape that has been engineered to permit boiling water to flow through more effectively and so to give consumers a better tasting drink. The company also uses a patented process that seals the foil that contains its loose teas and tea bags so that they remain fresh for longer. Apart from extending the shelf life, it also improves the tea's flavor. Piping pays close attention to consumer feedback. The company has a website and consumers are encouraged to leave comments. The marketing and distribution department has a team that monitors social media looking for comments about tea drinking in general and piping in particular. Marketing and distribution has a group of facilitators who hold focus group meetings and tea tastings in supermarkets across Northlandia. Facilitators ask small groups of consumers to discuss their opinions about tea drinking. Participants are also asked to taste and comment on samples of teas made from piping and from competing brands. Consumer feedback has driven a number of changes, including the launch of new teas to meet changing preferences. So, consumer feedback has driven a number of changes, including the launch of new teas to meet changing preferences and the modification of packaging. For example, some consumers complained that the new foil packaging was difficult to open, and so the design was modified slightly so that it was easier to use while still preserving the freshness of the product. Piping's market research indicates that consumers believe that tea has health enhancing effects. It would be against the law for tea companies to make claims to that effect unless they conducted the same tests and trials that are applied to pharmaceutical drugs. There is nothing to stop tea companies making general statements in their advertising, but they must not claim health benefits. And we have a possible branding image which says a cup of piping tea is the fastest way to recharge your battery, high in antioxidants and just enough caffeine. Legally, piping would only be in a breach if it claimed that the high antioxidant quality of its tea made consumers healthier. Stating that the tea is high in antioxidants is factually correct, and any inference by consumers that they will benefit from drinking a substance that is high in antioxidants is up to them. Competition. Piping's most direct competitor is Hotlow tea. Hotlow. Hotlow competes in piping's market space by producing good quality loose tea and tea bags. Hotlow follows Piping's policy of selling its products in attractive and practical packaging that reflects the quality of the tea itself. Piping also faces competition from three other large manufacturers that sell to the Northlandian market. First, we have Valuti, which sells its own budget brand of low-priced loose tea and tea bags. Then we have Jenner Tea and Own Tea, which manufactures own brand tea for retail chains. Then we have a pie chart which is on the Northlandian tea market by revenue. We see that piping has the highest revenue portion, 23%. Secondly, Hotlo at 20%, followed by Valuti 18%, Jenner Tea 17%, Own Tea 14%, and others taking a portion of 8%. So piping at the top. Then we arrive at extracts from piping's annual report. They have provided the consolidated statement of profits and losses. Let's quickly take a look at revenue. That's about $3 billion, and profit at $251 million. Bottom line, you have the statement of equity, you have the statement of financial position as well. Total assets at 2.2 billion, and you have retained earnings of 807 million, borrowings of 700 million. It has been reduced from the previous year. Breakdown of revenues and operating profits have also been provided. You basically have a mix of total revenue between tea bags and loose tea. Operating profit, same breakdown. Revenue from Northlandian versus revenue from exports. And you have operating profit from Northlandian or local and operating profits from exports. So there is plenty of information here for a breakdown. You also have percentage versions of possibly the ones we looked at just now. You have revenue for the year ended loose tea 9% to 91% tea bags versus 7% to 93% of ratio between loose tea and tea bags in terms of revenue for the year ended 31st December 2020. So we have the current year and the previous year, 2021 and 2020 comparisons for total revenue in percentages, total operating profit in percentages, total revenue mix between exports and Northlandian, and between operating profit, same, exports versus Northlandian. So that's basically a percentage version of these numbers that you have on page number 17. Perfect. So you can actually do a more thorough single page financial analysis that will be very helpful, bringing in all the ratios, all the breakdowns, all the KPIs related to this company into one location. Then we have extract from Hotlo's annual report, the competitor, closest competitor with 20% market share. Hotlo is piping's most direct competitor in the Northlandian tea market. Both companies sell products that are regarded as good quality. Some consumers drink one brand of tea exclusively, but others switch between brands based on price or personal taste. Hotlo is based in Northlandia and is quoted on the Northlandian Stock Exchange. You have revenue at 2.5 billion. If I remember right, we are about 500 million ahead of them then. Piping has revenue top line at about 3 billion. Bottom line profit, piping's profit was about 250 million, whereas Hotlo Group, the second number 2 player, has 185 million. So that's a strong gap. You have their statement of equity and the statement of financial position. That brings me to the final segment in the pre-scene, the news reports. First, we have a news item. Switching to full screen view. Northlandia Business Daily. Botanists make their mark. Botany is the scientific study of plants. It was once regarded as a narrow and uninteresting branch of biology, but it is now becoming increasingly important in a variety of industries. Apart from providing food, plants are the basis for a host of products ranging from cosmetics to the rubber of car tires. The characteristics of plants can have a significant impact on a wide variety of industries. Research conducted by botanists can identify varieties of plants that are used or that are suited to specific needs. For example, different varieties of wheat make different varieties of flour. They also grow differently according to local weather conditions. Some are more tolerant of plant diseases or other pests. Thus, a farmer might consider seeking advice about the best seed to sow in order to get a good crop from a particular field, taking account of climate, soil type, and the local insect population. Botanists can also create their own new plant varieties. Fertilizing plants of one variety with pollen from another can lead varieties that combine the best qualities of both. So, a variety of wheat that is resistant to drought can be mixed with another that is resistant to pests, and the result will hopefully be a variety of wheat that is resistant to both drought and pests. Then we have a news item from Northlandia Daily News, Dr. Mayna's health column. Patients often ask me whether tea is healthier than coffee. That is a more complicated question than you might imagine because both drinks have their health benefits and their health risks. Most of the benefits associated with tea and coffee arise because both are rich sources of antioxidants. These are chemical compounds that protect the human body from all sorts of diseases. Tea and coffee both contain caffeine, which is a stimulant. A cup of coffee usually contains twice as much caffeine as a cup of tea. In moderation, caffeine can be beneficial. The most obvious benefit is that it can be refreshing, which explains why so many people enjoy tea or coffee with their breakfast or during work breaks. A moderate caffeine intake can also reduce the risk of certain diseases. Caffeine can, however, prove harmful to some people, particularly when consumed to excess because it can cause anxiety, irregular heartbeat, raised blood pressure, and can disrupt sleep patterns. A small number of people are sensitive to caffeine and will have a reaction that is similar to an allergic reaction if they consume even a small amount. Tea and coffee both contain different types of antioxidants that increase resistance to different diseases. That alone makes it difficult to claim that one is healthier than the other. Tea generally contains less caffeine than coffee, but that does not necessarily make it beneficial to drink tea in large quantities. It is possible to buy decaffeinated tea and coffee that have been processed to remove most of the caffeine. That requires a chemical process to be applied to the tea leaves or coffee beans. The process removes most of the caffeine, but it also removes a lot of the antioxidants. It is impossible to remove all of the caffeine, so decaffeinated really means very low in caffeine. A cup of decaffeinated coffee won't keep you awake at night, but it should still be avoided by those who are sensitive to caffeine. Then we have a few happy comic Reader's Digest questions. The first question is from Sandy, age 11. Question: my dad opened a new box of tea bags this morning and it made me think about how difficult it must be to fill all those tiny little bags with just the right amount of tea. How do they do that? Interesting. The answer: tea bag factories start with large rolls of special paper. The paper is cut into strips by machines in the factory, and portions of tea leaves are poured onto each strip to make little heaps. Another strip of paper is laid on top, and the two layers of paper are fused together so that the heaps of tea are now sealed between the paper strips. Finally, the machinery cuts the paper strips in exactly the right place to separate the individual tea bags. It all happens so quickly that we use machinery to do this because people wouldn't be able to keep up with production. The people who work in the factory are there to check the machinery and make sure that there is always plenty of tea and paper. Then you have a question from Vijay, age 10. When paper gets wet, it disintegrates, but tea bags are made out of paper and they can be dunked in boiling water for ages. How is this possible? Fair enough question. It is true that water and paper don't usually mix, but tea bags use paper that is made from fibers taken from banana leaves. Tea bag paper wouldn't be very good to write on, but it does stand up to boiling water. Some companies add plastic to the paper to make their tea bags stronger still. Then you have a question from Anya, age 11. The question is, I was marked wrong in a school essay because I said that peppermint tea is a type of tea. My teacher said that I should have referred to it as peppermint infusion. Was I really wrong? The answer: I hope that you didn't lose too many marks, Anya, because most retailers sell boxes of peppermint tea as well as many other drinks that are called tea because they require leaves to be soaked in boiling water. Strictly speaking, only the leaves of the Camellia sinensis shrub and the drink that those leaves are used to make it should be described as tea. Products made from different plants should be called infusions. We have finally the last question, I believe, from Dara, age 12. Why don't they grow more valuable crops such as wheat on tea plantations? Answer: the best tea leaves are grown high up in mountainous regions. The best tea leaves are grown high up in mountainous regions. Good luck getting the equipment required by a modern wheat farm onto a typical tea plantation. It is lucky that tea shrubs grow there because the land is generally unsuitable for any other purpose, including farming most other crops. Harvesting tea is an ongoing and labor-intensive process. Tea pickers work their way along rows of shrubs and pluck the fresh growth of leaves from the top. Each row of shrubs is harvested every 2 weeks or so. And that marks the end of the complete reading of the CIMA MCS or the Gateway Examination May 2022. Quite interesting company. I'm a little more familiar with tea because it's grown a lot in locally here in Sri Lanka, and we export a whole lot of it. It's one of our biggest earners. So this is definitely going to be interesting. I hope you enjoyed the reading, and all the very best. Good luck. I'll see you around with different sort of content in the future. Thank you very much, and happy learning, ladies and gentlemen.